this computer. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, whenever time you're watching this. Welcome to my music corner of the world. My name is John Clauser. This is another edition of the North and South Rock and Metal Connection, although we're missing the North part. But that's okay. We've got his list handy. Roger, hopefully he'll be on maybe at some point on this night. But we got JD Akins. We got the Carsons brothers, Ben and Jason. How you guys all doing tonight?
Doing well.
Doing
Well.
Rocking and rolling? All right.
Oh, yeah.
How's Alabama doing?
24-0 right now.
Still 24-0. Okay. All right. So we're in the throes of an Alabama game tonight. So we're going to talk about some album openers tonight. We're going to mention our top 3, or at least 3 favorites, with a couple of honorable mentions. Songs that kicks off albums that we probably personally love, and it just sets a certain tone and just knocks you flat on your face. So let's see, who do we want to go with first? I say let's go with Ben first. Let's start with Ben this time.
So for my number 3, a great album opener we know should set the tone for an entire album. It should also immediately draw you in the first minute or so, first couple of seconds. The first notes you hear dictate whether or not you continue listening to this album. And for that one, I picked Fire It Up by Black Label Society from their 2005 album Mafia.
Okay.
It just slays, man. It takes about 38 seconds of buildup of this crescendo, and then it hits this awesome talk box guitar intro that's got a drum beat behind it that's just the coolest groove you'll ever hear. And then it hits hard, comes on in, starts off immediately with Zach screaming. Great song, great solo, great album. Album is chock full of wonderful stuff, and I can't recommend that one enough. Fire It Up by Black Label Society.
Nice. All right.
It
That's
is a jamming tune.
great stuff there. Boy, I was hoping we'd get something maybe a little off the beaten path with some different stuff. So that's a good choice. All right. So I'm going to be a little different, and we'll go to JD, and then we'll come back to Jason.
All right.
Just a little different.
All right. Mine is, I think it's the latest release from the 3 that I have. Came out in 92. Second album by this band. They released their first album in sometime in the late 80s. I can't remember. I think it was 89. Didn't really do very well for them. So they kind of had to, retool a little bit. I believe they kept the same lineup from the first one, but just got rid of the lead singer and brought in a new singer. And then in 92, they came out with this album, and it's Pull Me Under from Dream Theater's Images and Words.
It's a great track.
It's, oh gosh, it's starts out somber, and it's got the prog, the progressive element to it, where you got to set the tone before, about 2 minutes in is where the actual vocals kick in. But it's 8 minutes and 11 seconds. Yeah, that's a little lengthy for an opening track, but then again, it's Dream Theater. That's what they do. They're known for their,
Yep.
But yeah, it's killer opening. It shows James, the Brutus right off the bat. Just, hey guys, got a new singer. We're hitting you with this really great track, and it's funny enough, it's their only hit. Their only big hit they ever had. And it's odd to me to think that this band is so loved and the members of the band are so well respected, but it's the only big hit. And it's funny, they did a greatest hits album that is called Greatest Hit and 20 other tracks.
Yeah.
But it starts the album, and to me, just this album just does not let up. It's a fantastic, fantastic album. It's I think it's the one I've had the most time with. It's current. The CD is still in my car right now. I listen to it, about every other week. But yeah, it's you can't, I right now I think it is my favorite Dream Theater album. But yeah, great track.
Great track. That is actually one I do have that CD, and that's yeah. I always like to Pull Me Under. I always thought that was a
And I got it from one of my local stores for $1.99.
nice.
That and I got like their first like 6 or 7 albums and like 2 live albums for $2 a piece.
Yeah.
I've been going back to see if maybe I can find the other ones, but haven't had any luck.
Have you picked up Change of Seasons?
Yeah, I got that one too. That one
I love
able,
Change of
I was
Seasons.
able to find that, and I think it stopped at their 2003 album. I think
Okay.
was it. I can't think about it, but yeah. So I got to get Octavarium from there on. Even the Astonishing, which people don't really like. That's
Right.
the only one I don't think I've ever heard that one.
Okay.
But yeah.
Good choice. Love that one. That's a good one. Jason, what you got, brother?
Well, my number 3 is an obvious band choice, but it's not really a song that I hear a lot of people who are fans of this band talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And it to this day it's my favorite opening track that they ever did. And it's Fuel by Metallica. Opening track from Reload.
Okay.
Reload
Good
is
choice. Good choice.
Reload is not an album that gets talked about a lot because it's that blues era of Metallica. But it's Fuel is not bluesy. It
No,
sounds
it's
like
not.
it sounds like it could be early Metallica. Just without the tempo changes because it hits hard from beginning to end. Great track, sets the pace for the album because Reload is a very hard hitting record. Yeah, I mean, it's got some other tracks on there that are not quite as hard hitting, but to me, it does what an opening track is supposed to do. It grabs you by the ear straight off because, I mean, first thing you hear when you turn this album on is you hear, give me fuel, give me fire, give me that which I desire. And then that just epic riff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Reload is my favorite Metallica album, but that's for another podcast one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes to show there's just I don't think Hetfield gets the credit that he deserves.
No,
He does
doesn't.
not.
Great album, great track, and that's my number 3 pick for greatest opener.
All right.
Metal Dad, what you rocking for number 3?
Well, I'm going to give Rogers number 3 real quick, just in case he doesn't get on here. So our North Connection partner Roger, who wasn't able to join us tonight, at least or so far. He lists his number 3, and this is a great track too. This is you talk about being bludgeoned over the head. Painkiller by Judas Priest.
It's a good one.
Oh, good Lord. That when Scott Travis kicks off that thing just bludgeons you over the head. And then man, they kick off with that riff. That is just a huge riff. But yeah, great track. It certainly would have made my list, but most of mine have been with me for a very long time. So my number 3, I remember hearing this on the radio when I was, oh gosh, just a wee little lad. This was probably before Jason was born. And this was a time that this band was they just released their debut album, and their leadoff track has this absolutely killer twin lead guitar playing that just was, they interchanged and interposed, went back and forth. But the band had this kind of a power pop rock, hard rock kind of sound. And if you all know who I might be talking about, Don't Tell Me You Love Me.
Night Ranger.
Oh my gosh.
Night Ranger.
I love Don't Tell Me You Love Me. Love this track.
Slept on Night Ranger because the only thing I know by them is Sister Christian, and I know I'm judging them way too harshly.
Yeah, Brad Gillis is like an insanely good shredder guitar player.
Oh,
you gotta be to take Randy Rhodes' spot.
I mean, because he was a good shredder too, but he did a lot of his stuff was also with the dive bombs too. So he did a lot of whammy bar stuff too. But it was Jeff Watson who was doing just the really freakish stuff with the 8-finger tapping and all kinds of things like that too. So it was just ridiculous what those two were doing together. So, but my gosh, when I first heard "Don't Tell Me You Love Me," man, I just was blown away. Uh, this is my original copy from my 11 albums for a penny from Columbia Record House. This is still on the Boardwalk label. This is such a good power pop rock album with Sing Me Away is a great track. At Night She Sleeps is fun. Eddie's Coming Out Tonight's great. The title song Night Ranger is great. Can't Find Me a Thrill, Play Rough. I mean, this is a great album. This first Night Ranger album is just fantastic. So that's my number 3. Don't Tell Me You Love Me. So Ben, number 2.
All right, for my number 2, this song it takes a little work to get through, but it's a wonderful opening track. It's like 8 or 9 minutes long. It's got a bunch of different pieces to it. It's got fast pieces. It's got a big build up. It's got a slow piece in the middle, a cappella stuff. And that is it's from a band from Finland called Nightwish. And our DDP yoga sister, Audrey Lee, huge Nightwish fan. Shout out to Audrey. She's awesome. But this is from their 2009 album, Dark Passion Play, and it's called The Poet and the Pendulum.
Okay.
It is an insanely good song, crazy good song, crazy good album, chock full of really good songs. 7 Days to the Wolves, Bye Bye Beautiful, Aramonth. Really good album, great opening track. Like I said, it's very long, but it's such a cool song. And if you got time to listen to it, I highly recommend it. You'll love it. You'll love the band. This was their debut album with a second lead singer. They fired their original singer, Tarja, at the end of their last album's tour and picked up this lady named Annette. And she is a really good singer and did the album wonderful justice. Cool. So if you got time for it, The Poet and the Pendulum, Nightwish, Dark Passion Play, highly recommend it.
Nice.
So that was before they got Floor.
Yeah. They did 2 with Annette, and then it didn't work out with her. They had Dark Passion Play, which I think was 2007. It's either I think it was sometime.
Apple Music has it listed in 2009. It could be a deluxe reissue. I don't know.
Yeah, that happens. But yeah. But yeah, they did that one, and then like 2012 they had Imaginarium, which was like kind of like a concept piece because they had like this big movie that they had supposedly done. It didn't come out. It's like 3 or 4 years later, and by that time, I think Annette was out and Floor was in. They've only done like 2 albums. They've not been like a very like release. They release and then tour a lot, and then they and they'll do something. Yeah, it's like I mean I think that's probably how come like I've kind of like dropped out of Nightwish is because they haven't been very prolific as as they once were.
But their early stuff leading up to this album and this album are just timeless.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Good choice there. Good choice. JD, what you got next?
All right, I got a little obvious choice, but talking about openers, you can't go wrong with Tom Sawyer. Like it was,
I was waiting on a rush.
It was heard this song growing up all the time as a kid, and I'd listen to it all the time, and then now it's become you would think at this point I'd be sick of it after hearing it so long, but I'm not. I always find something new to love about that song because it's all and it's all funny enough my favorite Rush album. Yeah, it's just everything about it to me. It's just it's Rush. I mean, what else can you come in with with the little with Neil's drumming and then Getty just comes in and it just goes off from there. And find out my favorite part of the whole song is the keyboard bits, the keyboard solos. And I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I do a terrible job at it. When I hear that song, I'm driving down the road and I'm singing the keyboard parts every time. I'm like, yeah, there's a video that South Park did that Rush used to air before they did that song. And Cartman was Getty. And when he would play it, he would even sing the little keyboard parts. And that was inspired me to just do it. So it's like but to me, I love that song. It kicks off, like I said, my favorite Rush album. Um, I just it's I guess I can never get tired of it,
Only
and
Rush song that I like.
yes, I mean it's different than what came before it, but they were smart enough to take this and shorten the songs up, but still make it feel like you were listening to a Rush track.
Yeah.
And you've got obviously the great lyrics by Neil, and Alex's solo on that is just wonderful to me. I think it's one of his best solos, and it's a solo. It's not flat. It's not too flashy, but it's enough where like it's memorable. You can sit there and you can hear dun, 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 it's just the song itself is just very memorable, and it's catchy and it rolls off the tongue. And I think it's a smart move to put that. And it's funny enough. It's like I said, it's played every show, and there's a reason for it. And like I said, it kicks off. Like I said, also the album just after that, the album just keeps gets better and better.
Yep.
You can find that it's my favorite album opener, but find out it's not my favorite track on that album. That's the funny thing.
That's a great album. I mean, Red Barchetta is beautiful.
Yes,
YYZ is beautiful.
Yeah.
Limelight's a great track, and then the second
side two,
and then side two, boy,
it's really good. Camera Eye, Vital Signs, The Witch Hunt.
I mean, man, I slept on those songs for a long time.
And I heard, I've heard a lot of people saying that, and I'm, I guess probably because the fact that, I'm that guy that listens to the album all the way through. So I listen to the whole thing, but yeah, solid, good. That song is enough right there to put Rush as like a top band for me. But luckily for me, I'm not just that guy that's just, oh, Tom Sawyer, that's it. Like that, it's like, no, I'm everything, I like. Some of it not as much as others, but I think now after listening to, everything, I really don't think, granted, yeah, they might have a couple of duds, but it's still pretty solid stuff overall. So they're a band that they knew what to do, and every album they've had, they've
knocked it out of the park.
Well, I mean, Moving Pictures is a phenomenal album. It really is. But I don't know. Me personally, I know JD said Moving Pictures is his favorite record, but for me, I still got to say it's 2112 is their best record. Just because you're hearing them when they're still young, raw, and hungry. With Moving Pictures, they've had some success and they got a little taste of the good life, and it's a little more polished.
Sounds like a whole other episode right there.
It does.
I think it does.
Yeah, but I mean, like you said,
nice stuff.
But I don't know. Like I said, that's just who I am. It's just,
sure.
Hey, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with Moving Pictures. I'm not saying that at all. It is a phenomenal record.
Yep. I think I've got 2112. I think it's sitting, if I'm not mistaken, it might be like in my top 3, honestly, with them. It would go that Permanent Waves, and then 2112. Like I almost was thinking, I was like, I could put the Spirit of Radio on here. You know, like I said, there, I mean, like I said, that's the list for potential another day for this topic. It's open,
Well, technically, you could have put all of side one of 2112 on here because it's
I
the
mean,
opening track and it's
yeah,
in
that's
5
true.
parts.
I was thinking that, but the same, yeah, but it's like, I don't,
It's kind of cheating, though.
it's a little bit,
Just
yeah, it's a little bit, just teensy weensy little bit.
Jason, what you got next?
I'm sorry, guys, but I had to do obvious for this one just because of what it is. I mean, there's nothing I can say. It's Hell's Bells from Back in Black. It's the opening track of a band who just lost their lead singer, and they've got a new one. And what can you say about it? It's Hell's Bells. It is.
Mm-hmm.
It could easily be number one on anybody's list of greatest album openers. I mean, from the moment that bell gongs, they're tolling the bell for Bond, and you hear that evil, nasty sounding guitar riff.
Oh yeah.
And then it just goes in, and the first time we hear Brian sing, and he's screeching like this banshee from hell. It's perfection.
Mm-hmm.
And it's as good as they get, but it's not my number one.
I was gonna mention that one because that was, I mean,
it's an obvious choice, but you
absolutely
have to put it on there.
Yes. To me, it kicks off what practically is probably almost the most perfect AC/DC album ever.
Yes, it is the
in my
perfect
opinion.
album.
To me, I mean, I think the one song that I kind of like for me is Shake a Leg. But after that, I just love every single song on that album.
10 tracks and 10 hit songs on it.
Yeah. I mean, that's a solid pick. And when that bell tolls, you're on a ride.
And and I know it's just my opinion and it's probably not right, but to me, the best song on the record, the quintessential AC/DC song, was the last song on it, Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution. It's the perfect AC/DC song. It's got that boogie woogie groove that they've done for 60 years now. Perfect.
Yep.
It sounds like a song they wrote with Bon Scott.
It does.
It does. I think no matter what they say, I think there's definitely some Bon Scottisms in that album. Whether they want to admit it or not, I think there is a few, but
there's got to be.
But you come off so quickly from that. From Highway to Hell in '79 to boom, you got new singer, new album. Like, you can't tell me that they already had like some stuff put down to pen and paper to be like, all right, guys, we get done with this, we do this tour. Because that's the way it was back in those days. You tour, but when you were on the road, you were still writing stuff. When that tour was over, shaboom, back in the studio. So it has to be.
Yep.
Yeah, they're Bond might not have sung anything demo wise, but you can't tell me that some of those songs weren't written with Bond in mind.
Yeah. I would agree. I would definitely agree with that. So. All right, solid pick. Like I said, I was gonna probably mention that one too. So I'm gonna use one of my other picks for mine. So,
what Roger have?
So Roger's number 2 was the Ace of Spades from Motorhead.
That's a good one.
That's a great track, of course. So I mean, you gotta stick a Motorhead song in there. And that kicks off a great album too. So. Great. So another great choice. So the number 2 I'm going to go with was another one that kind of came into my mind as I was thinking about this. And I'm actually going to pull my list up here because I just want to I want to make sure that, yes, I think I'm going to have to go with that one. So,
You're still making your list up as we're going.
I think I know what I know what my other one was going to be, but I had a few that I knew I was going to talk about. And so I was like, well, okay, well, we got Hell's Bells out of the way. So I'm like, well, okay, I'm going to go to a different one. This song was probably what really introduced me to this prog rock band. But the thing about this band with this particular album is they had a little bit of change in lineup at the time. So they have a new singer. They have a new keyboard player, which this band was kind of changing keyboard players a little often in the 70s, but they pretty much had the same vocalist for the most part. But they had a little falling out, and then 1990 or 1980, they recruit this guy named Trevor Horn to sing, and Jeff Downs to play on the keyboards. And I don't have my CD handy, but I'm talking about the band Yes and their album Drama. And the leadoff track is a song called Machine Messiah. It's a 10-minute, 27-second epic. Probably one of the heaviest, and I do mean heaviest songs Yes has ever done. When you hear this riff, you hear this fade in where you're hearing this you have this slow grinding Zeppelin like riff, which is just this for Yes was just ridiculously heavy. And then you get this nice little acoustic part where that leads into the verses. Then you have these nice other little interplays. And then about 5 minutes in, you get this crazy crescendo with the keyboards and drums and everything. And you get almost like a Freebird kind of ending. And then you get this absolutely crushing breakdown, which is, I'm just like, oh my gosh, how did Yes get this out of them? It's just amazing. When I first heard this track, I just was absolutely floored, and I'm just like, I went and I just love this album. I love the Drama album. It was one of the only ones that they did without John Anderson. Of course, John Anderson would leave later on, and he hasn't been back with the band. But those last couple albums have been, yeah, okay, but nothing to write home about. But this thing has 6 tracks. It has us one little minute and a half song, and then it goes into another track, and then side 2 is just such a great overlooked album that a lot of Yes fans have really come to love, and it's been one of my favorites for over 40 years. But man, you guys want to listen to an epic track, Machine Messiah from the Yes Drama album. Oh,
You had me
love
at
it.
first. I was trying to figure out where it was you were going with this, and at first I was like, I'm not really following. But then when you said 1980, I was like, okay, I'm there. And then when you mentioned the guitar, I was like, yep, okay, I know exactly. Yeah,
And
I've not heard that album, but
oh,
watching a lot of Sea of Tranquility and hearing the guys talk about, yeah,
it's
I kind
so
of know,
good.
I know about like all like when a lineup changes for a certain album. So when
Yep.
it came, I was like, yeah, he's going,
The tour
yeah.
didn't do well because Trevor Horn couldn't
Yeah,
pull off John Anderson's songs too well.
yeah, I
He
heard
did
that.
okay,
That's what they
but
said.
he just couldn't handle doing the tour. But oh man, that album is just unbelievably good. Definitely one to look into. And it's just funny because when you know Trevor Horn and Jeff Downs were that was the Buggles. That was the same, or that was the Buggles who came out with Video Killed the Radio Star, the first video ever played on MTV. So that's who they were from. So in fact, a couple of those songs on that album were kind of stuff they were working on in the Buggles. So yeah, it's a fantastic album. Tempest Fugit, another great song. Doesn't really happen. Um, I Am a Camera. Just great album. Okay, Ben, we are now to our top ones, and we'll do the honorable mentions last. So
Mentions last. Okay.
yeah, let's do the honorable mentions last.
So my number one was Hell's Bells by AC/DC. Luckily, I had a couple in retainer just in case there was some repeats. So I'm gonna go with Bark at the Moon from the album Bark at the Moon.
Mhm.
I would have figured that would have been your number one anyway, because I mean that's like your favorite Ozzy album.
Yeah, it is hands down my favorite Ozzy album. And the intro, absolutely 100% killer. Can't preach that enough. How good the song "Bark at the Moon" really is. It sets up the album incredibly well. The rest of the album, there's one or two filler tracks. But all in all, Bark at the Moon is an insanely good album. This song leads right into track 2. Oh gosh, what's the name of that song? It's the slow song, but it's a great song.
You're No Different? Or is
You're
that
No
track
Different.
3?
You're No
yeah, I
Different.
was-
It's track 2, I believe.
okay. Something, yeah, I like that one too.
Yeah, such a good song. And Jakey Lee's debut to the world,
Insanely great guitar player.
Such a good guitar player.
Yep.
His band now, Red Dragon Cartel, they're just so good. Their first album features a lot of guests in it. The girl from the Pretty Reckless sings a couple songs with them, and they're just amazing tracks. But Bark at the Moon, great album. Followed up, had to follow the death of Randy Rhoads and the tour with Brad Gillis from Night Ranger, all of that stuff. They found Jake, brought him in, and knocked this one straight out of the park and really set Ozzy up for that legendary status of bringing the hot, fresh guitar player off the streets and giving him worldwide status that he would go on to do with Zakk Wylde and Gus G and guys like that.
Mhm.
So yeah, Bark at the Moon would be my number one album opener ever.
Solid. Yeah, that's it is a good album. I don't listen to it as much, but boy, I love Rock and Roll Rebel. I love that track. That's a great one. But solid stuff. I was hoping we'd get some Ozzy in here somewhere. JD, what you got for your number uno?
All right. Part of me, like when I was doing this, I was thinking, I was like, do I really want to go this route? Because I have mentioned this particular track and this particular band in the previous video we've done. But also at the same time, it's like I gotta be true to myself. So going Caught Somewhere in Time from Somewhere in Time by Iron Maiden. I mean,
Got to.
Maiden never, to me, have never had a bad album opener. Never. In my honest opinion. I don't think they've ever had a bad one. Being the 90s, yeah, sure, they may not be the best, but I guarantee that's probably going to wind up being some people's best songs off whatever, the album from the 90s.
Yeah, Future Real may be a weak song for Maiden, but for any other band, that's a guaranteed hit.
Exactly.
Still not a bad song though.
Yeah. But yeah, it's it's what we talked about when we did the Maiden openers. It's it kicks off my favorite Maiden album, which viewers already know that. But yeah, it's just we talk about album openers, and it's like I have to put Maiden on here to me because it's just their favorite band. I love this band. I love this album. Love it. And it's like I say everything that I said when we did but yeah, it's just I love it, and it's just, like I said, it's still. Album still never lets me down. The song, all of it to me is just, it's great. Now that they're doing this big tour next year, merging Senjutsu, which I don't mind. You know, them doing some of this right there in it. I don't know what all they're going to do. We'll just have to wait and find out. But,
the Great.
One
but
can
yeah,
only
it's
dream.
and then I've got this little Eddie.
Yep.
I've got all the ones they put out so far. But yeah, this is well,
That's pretty cool.
That's
yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah.
I
So
love
far,
that.
they with studio albums, they've made it up to Seventh Son so far as far, and then they've done they've got like they made the other ones they've done is Live After Death's Eddie and the Nights of the Dead Eddie, that terrible live album from a couple years ago. But yeah, it's made.
Nothing wrong with Maiden. Gotta love that. Jason, what we got?
Numero uno.
I went in a completely different direction than anybody would have ever expected of me.
Travis
Like-
Tritt.
No, it is
Taylor
not
Swift.
Travis Tritt. No, and it's not T Swift either. My number
Digital
one,
Underground.
my number one, up until probably yesterday, which would have been Friday the 21st for whoever's watching this in the future. Up until yesterday, my number one was a tie. And it had been that way for 2 weeks. And I have spent the entire 2 weeks listening to these two songs back to back, back to back, back to back, trying to decide between them.
Ice Ice Baby and Ba with the Ba.
Wrong.
Oh.
So I finally broke down yesterday and was like, okay, it's done. I've got to make a decision, and I made it. I went with, I believe it's 1992. Let me double check. 1993, my mistake. I went with 1993's epic 12-minute opening track, I Would Do Anything for Love, but I Won't Do That by Meatloaf.
All right.
It is an amazing track.
Absolutely. That was on my radar as a top 3 pick.
Very nice. Love
It-
that. Wasn't expecting that.
I mean, we got to show Meatloaf some love here every once in a while. I love Meatloaf.
Mhm.
When that album come out, I was about 14 years old, so I was right at that threshold of becoming really heavily influenced by good music, early teens. That album come out, I went to the local Walmart and bought it on cassette.
Yep.
I wore that cassette out listening to this record, and that opening track especially.
Mhm.
It's just it's perfection.
Yes.
Once again, it's perfection, and it does what an opening track is supposed to do. It set the tone for the rest of the record.
The rest of the record is also amazing. Objects in the Rearview Mirror,
Yes.
Life is a Lemon, some of Desmond Child's best songwriting ever.
Well, it's not just Desmond Child. You
Jim
got
Steinman.
Steinman in it. Yeah, Jim
Oh,
Steinman.
Meatloaf and Jim Steinman. That was the perfect combination.
It's
Those two could make absolute. They could have done the song, the phone book, and they would have made it sound epic.
It's just exactly the same relationship as Elton John had with Bernie Taupin.
Yep.
It's the same thing.
Yep.
And I mean, the stuff they did together is always going to be better than what they do apart.
Yeah.
Yep.
Same way with Lennon and McCartney.
That was an album that was made for like a movie or a play or something. It sounded like it told a story from start to finish.
Same with that first Bat Out of Hell album. Same thing. That first one was just
which may show up again later.
good stuff. All right, so glad to see Meatloaf got some love for that. That's great choice, Jason. Okay, so Roger's his number one was he also went with a Metallica track, but he went with the song that introduced the world to the band, Hit the Lights from Kill 'Em All, or if you want to go a little further, Metal Massacre. But that was his pick, which is a great track on the off the Kill 'Em All album. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna throw out his honorable mentions real quick. Laid to Rest by Lamb of God.
Ooh, killer track.
Holy Wars by Megadeth. He goes Metallica again with Blackened from and Justice for All, and then he goes to Battery from Master of Puppets. And then of course his last honorable mention was featuring the banshee scream that just sends chills up and down my spine with the ridiculous drumming that goes behind it and the absolute brutal riffing that would be Angel of Death by Slayer. So
There's definitely some Slayer in there.
Yeah, I mean, you got to.
So for me, I have way too many honorable mentions to mention, so I'm not even going to go there. I'm going to spare everybody on this one, and I'm just going to stick with my because I think with this we could make this a serial show after a while. So
yeah, because you said earlier in the week you had like 70 some odd picks
something like
this.
That. So to narrow that one down is going to be pretty tough. So I'm just going to go with my number one. And if you guys want to mention other honorable mentions, I want to give you guys that spotlight. But for me, this band was their fourth album. They already came out with 3 pretty well-known albums. But I read about this band in this magazine called 16, and I also think I read about them in Rockline. These were like these teeny bopper magazines from back in the day. And they were about to come out with this album, and I was reading about them, and I thought, hey, this sounds kind of interesting. So I put it on my Christmas list to see if I would actually get it. And believe it or not, I did. And when I dropped that needle on that first track, and you hear this fade in. Mean Streets, Van Halen. My true introduction to King Edward was Mean Streets. I had never heard anything by the band before that. That was my introduction. Mean Streets was just absolutely punishing to listen to as an 11 or 12-year-old kid. And man, I'll tell you, Fair Warning is still my favorite album by the band. I love David Lee Roth's attitude on Mean Streets. The guitar is just dirty, it's nasty, it's evil sounding, it's heavy. You go into Dirty Movies and you just get this crazy, grimy slide groove. You get this center swing. You get Hear About It Later with this nice kind of softer spot. Then you flip the side over and then you got this brutal Unchained. You go into So This Is Love and Push Comes to Shove. And then you get this brutally heavy of Sunday Afternoon in the Park, and then One Foot Out the Door to end this. Oh, yeah. Love that album. But Mean Streets, man.
What's wrong with Van Halen?
What a track. Still my favorite. Probably still my favorite Van Halen song, actually. I love that song. But so there you go. That's gonna be my pick. So
I would have thought Running with the Devil would have been on this list somewhere. Wasn't that the opening track to the first album?
It was.
Yeah.
But again, for me, it was Mean Streets was my introduction. Yeah. And to me, I love that whole album so much. I love the first album too, but I don't have the special place in my heart for the first one quite like I do Fair Warning. So there you go.
It's like my pick with Meatloaf. It's that impressionable young age when you first get introduced to real music.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's what makes an impression.
Yep. Absolutely. And it certainly did with me. So there you go. So let's throw a couple honorable mentions if we got any, or unless we want to save them for another go around. But
I've got a couple that I mean, just one or two that to me, I don't think would be like to me top because I'm like in a different headspace than I was back then. But I wanted to give a shout out to this one. I just thought about them when we were at the very end of all this. This band, they started out as like one of those kind of like metalcore screamo bands for their first couple of albums, and I wasn't listening to them in that time period, but it was their third album that they released in 2005, and I don't think I heard this. I think I heard the song maybe like probably about a year or so after the album had came out, and this band, with me being the teenager that I was, that was like my dread. To me, it was like you can't get heavier than this. And I'm talking about Beast and the Harlot off of Avenged Sevenfold City of Evil.
Thought we might see that one out of you.
I mean, it's just
that changed your life, dude.
That changed like how I perceived how like at the time metal was.
Mm-hmm.
And I've falling off the whack because like I said, they haven't really then again, we've had the whole, last couple of years, minus all that. But that particular track was the one that when I was shown this, I was like, I need more of this.
Well, at that time in the world, 2005, 2006, and 7, that's where metal was. That's where the the record companies wanted metal to be was bands like that, impressing young teenagers.
I mean, you can't. So, but to me, though, like looking back on this, you can't go wrong with that track.
It's because, a great song. Great song.
The album itself is really. I haven't heard it in forever, but I wanted to give them a shout out because they were a big influence on me in my when I got to like the teenage years where I was like and just I love the song. It's a lot they play it every show. It's one of their big hits. Got one of the catchiest like choruses because the guitar kind of flows well with like the melody of the chorus. Like they go hand, like you can't have one without the other. And it's just I was blown away by these guys when I heard this, and I was still lucky enough that I got to see them with that particular lineup before their drummer had passed. I saw him, what was it, 09, like spring of 09, and the drummer passed away like in 2010.
Yeah.
But just to get to see them with that lineup from that album is to me will go down as like one of, I hold that up some like, thinking back, I hold that up with the Maiden show that we went to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, it was that song to me. And like I said, it was, and I followed the band from that point on. I was listening to anything that they put out. And it just, I'm hoping they've got something in the works. I'm pretty sure whatever it is, they'll knock it out of the park. And it's been going on about, I think, 6 years since their last release.
Yeah,
something like that.
I think the last album I listened to from them, it might have been the last one they put out was Hail to the King.
That was 2013. That was, they tried to be too much like what came before.
Yeah.
Well, I liked it because it sounded like old school classic hard rock. Yeah. It had that vibe to it, and I enjoyed it. I mean, I understand where a lot of the younger fans of the band probably didn't like it, but it hit all the right spots for me.
No, it was good.
But I liked the stuff they did before too. But I mean, to each his own.
Sevenfold is a great classic style metal band. They sort of got pigeonholed and thrown in there with all the screamo acts and the
the
gothic kids
albums
and all that stuff. They got thrown in it, but Zachy and Sin are one of the best modern tandem guitar duos that's ever been. They're right up there with Dave and Adrian and the guys from the Scorpions. You know,
Mhm.
they're insanely good and they mesh together so well. They know what the
They
other
really do. They're one of those.
They-
They're one of those
and
those guitar teams.
and M Shadows, I don't know how he got pigeonholed into a screamo thing when they first come out, because
They were all buddies.
he's not a screamer. He is a classic hard rock singer. He is not a screamer.
Yep.
I mean, he's
Yeah,
got
he's
that.
going, yeah, because he blew his vocals out doing the first two albums.
He's kind of got that, for lack of a better term, he's kind of got that Hetfield snarl about the way he sings.
Yeah,
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's great.
you know, it's like I said, it was that time period of everybody was making that type of music, and you know, and now they've refined and they found, I think they found like where they need to go. Same thing with like this other band that Ben knows about, Black Belt Brides. They were one of those. Their first album was a lot of screaming stuff to it. I didn't mind it because back then that was my thing. But going on from what they did with their second album going forward, they went and dropped the whole, like, they did do a little screams here or there, but it wasn't as like predominant. But they kind of stuck the whole like hard rock glam kind of style. They kind of took
Mm-hmm.
little bit of some Kiss, Motley Crue, but kind of modernized a little bit. Instead of talking about songs, it's like "We Want Girls." They were singing stuff about like how they felt about certain things, you know, like kind of stuff. So they had the like the glam, the big poofy hair, the makeup, but they wrote more about darker, uh, like darker elements and stuff in their music. So I kind of put those two kind of like in like the little regard where I still follow what they do
Mm-hmm.
because they both of those were two big impacts on me. Which they've got pretty good some pretty good openers as well.
What you got for an honorable
So
mention?
I've got 3 that I'm going to blitz through real quick with everybody's permission.
Sure.
My first honorable mention has to be on here because it was my introduction to the band and my introduction to hard rock or hair metal or glam metal, whatever you want to call it. And that would have to be Welcome to the Jungle. That's just got to be on there. You hear it, you immediately recognize it. It was a sleeper hit. It didn't blow up for them till much later after the record was released, but great song, great introduction to the band. Axl's vocals were just insane. That whole album, he was on a different level than anybody else in the business. That's why they were the biggest band in the world. And, 88, 89, they did everything better than anybody else.
Well, I will say if this had been a top 5 list, that probably would have been my number 4.
Yeah. My next one is the song Hotel California. It's a bit of a stretch, but I prefer the live acoustic opening to the Hell Freezes Over video
Yes.
than
Yes.
the actual album cut. To me, it's a better version of the song.
It's got a different groove.
It's got a different groove. It's got that Spanish feel to it. It's a
Yeah.
Western song, so it's got a Western cowboy style feel to it. Love that version of the song, but coincidentally, it's also the original recording is the opening track to the album. So it works out either way. And last but not least, The Wicker Man by Iron Maiden from the album Brave New World in 2000. My personal favorite album that they've ever done, my personal favorite opening song that they've ever done. Hits hard, stays hard. There you go. It's a great song. Great chorus, great hook, great riff. Introduction to the 3 guitar lineup of the band. Can't beat it. Very, very narrowly missed out on my top 3, but it's already made my top 1 on one list. So
No, that was me too. I was like, do I want to go ahead and just do this repeat? But like I said, I was like, no, gotta stay true to myself. Like I was also thinking, I was like, well, I had a couple other mentions, but like, no, I think I could save those for the act for another actual like. 'Cause I think to me the ones I had a couple like little shit. I was like, nah, I think I'm gonna say that if we do this again, I
I'm
think
sure we will.
I would like to save those for because I think I've
Mhm.
got a couple other ones that are
Yeah,
that I feel like are worthy to be like in a top to talk more about than like just throwing it out there.
Mhm.
yeah, I definitely think that this episode could definitely warrant a sequel, another top
Oh, yeah.
three.
Easily.
But
Yeah.
that being said, I'm going to throw out my two honorable mentions.
Okay.
The first one, yeah, I mean, it just it introduced the world to one Randy Rhodes, and that would be "I Don't Know" from Blizzard of Oz.
Good song. Good
Yeah.
pick.
Great track.
That was a world changing moment because
Mhm.
we got, no offense to anybody, I don't want to upset anybody, so please no hate in the comments, thing like that. I'm a Randy Rhodes fan more than an Eddie Van Halen fan.
Like what you
This
like.
is this is my Running with the Devil. This is where I was introduced to what a true guitar god is supposed to be. That being said, great track. It's the start of Ozzy's solo career because he'd just been ousted from Sabbath. And all around, it's just a really great song in and of itself.
Mhm.
Beyond all of the other things that have been heaped upon it, such as being the world's introduction to Randy, Ozzy's first venture into solo stardom, all of that. It's just a really great song.
Yeah.
So that's that one. And my other honorable mention is the song that tied for number one. It's the other great Meatloaf opening track, Bat Out of Hell.
Yep.
I could not choose between them.
Yep.
I mean, and if you ask me tomorrow, it might be Bat Out of Hell at number one, and I would do Anything for Love and honorable mentions. They're both
They're both
phenomenal.
awesome songs.
Yeah, I mean, and it nearly drove me nuts trying to decide between them. Because I mean, it's not that one's better than the other. It's that Bat Out of Hell was young Meatloaf just starting out. I Would Do Anything for Love is older Meatloaf who is more matured and his voice has gotten smoother and he has better control over it. It's just it's the evolution of the singer that he was.
Mississippi State just scored on the final play of the game, losing 30-6. Roll Tide.
Wow.
But yeah, that those are my honorable mentions. And like I said, Bat Out of Hell is, no disrespect, it is a phenomenal song. And
It is.
I probably should have put it at number two, but I wanted to get the Metallica song and I wanted to get the AC/DC song in there.
Had to.
Get the variety. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
all right. So there you have it. You've heard some a good eclectic choices of album openers here. So y'all know what to do when you're watching these videos. Tell us what some of your favorites are in that comment section. Like, share, subscribe to my channel. Check
Hit
me.
the bell.
Yeah, ring those bells, man. You know all the lingo. I've got a lot of other content on the channel. Please feel free to check it out. We've been doing a bunch of stuff all together. We've been talking 1976. We've been talking 1979. We talked about 1986, where we've done an Iron Maiden opening show with a bunch of other folks. We've got some good content where we're just having a lot of fun. So be sure to check us all out. Subscribe to the channel. Let us know what you think. For Roger, who could not be here of the North and South Rock and Metal Connection.
Love you, Roger.
We love you, brother. For the brothers Carson, Ben and Jason. For JD, I am John Clauser, the Metal Dad. My music corner of the world. Have a great night. We will catch up to you soon.